clocks?
I don't know what we got.
Or wind
Hell
power?
no. Those are gas-fired generators, buddy.
God, somebody real short's been in this chair. Got me sitting
Somebody
there.
wearing shorts, what are you talking about?
No.
Would you enunciate?
No, sir. I'm gonna be real quiet now.
You are. Kara, see that he holds to that.
Okay,
You've been exposed?
possibly.
Where's my mask?
I'm sorry, but I had to be here.
Here you go, guys.
There you go. That's what you might
I'll
want.
take my cookies out of here and put that around my face. Just kind of sit there and chew on a cookie while
Yeah, that'll fix it.
That'll work.
That'll fix it.
Still got another minute.
Yeah.
Is Carlton and Henry gonna be here or no?
Nope, just the three.
Have I told you how I tell my daughter that this is my special meeting and if I'm late, I go to jail?
If what?
If I'm late, I go to jail. If I'm like late to this meeting. So that's
Does
how
that
I get
motivate
her
her
to go.
to,
Yep.
she doesn't want mommy to go to jail, so she's, instead of the usual heels in, I don't
Yeah.
wanna go.
Yeah. Messing around, I know it's
Yeah,
probably a
do
horrible
it.
thing to do, but.
How long you reckon that'll hold? You get away with that through your first term anyway, huh?
I don't know. But it works. So I'm
Is
gonna
she
go
what?
with it.
Back in the old days,
Six?
they used to have where the detention center would arrest local people and they'd tell people to get money together as a fundraiser. Or they were gonna keep them in. Remember when they did that? Carol, you remember when they used to do that? Put them in jail and say you can bond them out, they need $500 and they'd get donations to get them out of jail. That was their fundraiser. I can't remember who that was. We tried to get Steven out, but he was in there for a legitimate reason.
With that.
And he was held without bond.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Salute the flag of the state of New Mexico and to see its symbol of perfect friendship among united cultures. I'll go ahead and begin with the invocation. Our Father in heaven, we're grateful to be here this morning. We're grateful for the good weather and rain that's fallen on certain parts of the United States, and ask that rain may come and fall here as well. We're mindful of the children going back to school and pray that we have necessary supplies to do so. Pray that please be with all the teachers and help them get things in line and feel comfortable starting the school year. Pray that parents may be involved in their kids' education as we begin, and that the homes of Eddy County may be strengthened as families spend more time together, are involved in education. Pray that please be with the people to and from the fair, traveling, and all the special events up there. Everybody do so safely, that there would be mindful consideration for drinking and driving, and that we would not have any victims thereof. Thank you for thy Son Jesus Christ above all else. And these things we pray in his name. Amen.
Good morning, Commissioners. Thank you for being here for this special meeting, kind of the end of the fiscal year in preparation for filing reports with the state. Have not received any written public comments. Are there any public comments from the audience? I don't see any. Thank you. For your information, the Treasurer's Report for June 2022 was included in this packet. And we'll start with item number 4, the June 2022 Revenue Report, Mr. Burba.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, Commissioners. For the June 2022 Revenue Report, for the month of June, we collected $3.9 million for GRT. Overall, for the fiscal year, we ended up $16.7 million over what budgeted. We budgeted 22.2 million for GRT, and we ended up collecting 38.9. It was from last year, total from last year was 110% increase of what we collected from last year. For oil and gas for the month of June, the county collected $8.8 million. This was, for the month of June, we collected about 18.2 million barrels. And it was about $107 for the price of oil for the month of June. Overall for the year, we averaged about 16.5 million barrels at about $75 for the entire year. If you remember,
16.5 per month.
65 million,
Oh.
65 million barrels for the entire year is what we averaged
Okay.
at $75 price
Yeah,
per
I was
barrel.
thinking 16.5 per month, that is, we're killing that. Okay, sorry.
And for this fiscal year, if you remember, we averaged 13 million barrels per month. That's what we were budgeting for at $47 for the price. So with that, for the revenue report, I'll stand for any questions.
Questions, comments for revenue report? Okay. Okay, a motion, we approve the June 2022 revenue report.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Cordova,
Yes.
McCutcheon,
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. The next item is the Resolution 22-64, fiscal year 2021-2022 year-end budget adjustments. Ms. Roberta.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, the 2021-22 year-end budget adjustments, these really are just truing up revenue for the end of the year, any grant funds and any debt funds, which are NMFA funds for our fire departments. That's really the majority of the budget adjustments for the year-end. So unless you guys have any other questions about a particular budget adjustment, these are more routine than anything at the end of the year.
Okay. Questions or comments on revenue, or on budget adjustments? Having none, entertain a motion that we approve the year-end budget adjustments.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Cordova,
Yes.
McCutcheon,
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. Next item is budget versus actual, June revenue and expenses. Ms. Roberta.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, for June budget versus actual, the county ended up collecting as a whole 212.65 million in revenue, and for expenses, $141.5 million in expenses. For general fund ended up collecting a little over $140 million, and for expenses, we expensed less than half of that at $66.4 million. So we did leave about 19% of our expenses on the table unspent. We usually, like I said, average about anywhere from 5 to 9%, so it's quite a bit under this year that we're not expensed. And I think Al and I discussed that in the last commission meeting on some of the reasons why that we left so much left on the table.
Yeah, I think in a lot of instances, delays in services and resources has been the principal key, getting people and material here to do the things that we need to do. I mean, we've been actively engaged to try and complete the projects that we've targeted, but it's just, county's not immune to the same economic dynamics that the rest of the community and the other businesses experience. So that's the principal reason for the shortfall. And the other one would be on the staffing side, we have a fair number of vacancies in several of the departments, and so when we budget those monies, if folks aren't there for the wages, then that's a contributing factor to what's going on. So, and again, the county's not immune. The activity level, economic activity level in the area is high, and so the resource pool is somewhat finite in this immediate area, and so competing for those workers is a challenge. And so we've seen evidences of some wages rising in some particular businesses or whatever, so that's one of the factors that we're looking at right now.
So, budgeted revenue for the year was 214,000. Excuse me, yeah, right, budgeted revenue. Okay,
No, budgeted revenue was, for the entire county?
yes, I was just looking at the first sheet.
Oh, yes, sorry.
214,000, and the actual revenue was 214 million, and the actual revenue was 212 million.
Correct.
You guys are like target shooters. Like, that's really impressive. Is it, I mean, we're 0.5% off, right? It's $2 million.
Well, and the other side to that too is DFA really wants us to true up that revenue. So in theory, I could have left the budget at 180-some thousand million budgeted, but they really like us to true up the revenue on the bigger items like your property tax, gross receipts tax, the oil and gas.
So this isn't adjusted then?
It isn't adjusted, yes.
Okay, that's not like forecasted last July.
No, that's not what
Okay,
we
well, you're not as
originally.
good target shooters as I thought you were. I was like.
Well,
okay.
but to be, so when we made our forecast on budget, we conservatively budgeted both oil and gas severance revenues. Property tax was probably the closest of all. We have the best data on that. And GRT, we were conservative on that because we weren't certain about the economic upturn and the pace of that. So the oil and gas revenue, we budgeted on a moderate volume of 13 million barrels a month and 47.50. So our revenue projection was substantially below what
Because we have
we
the
realized.
$50 million surplus, or well, it's actually more than, it's now 72 million, yes-ish,
Right.
right?
So we received more revenue from oil and gas than we projected. We received more revenue from gross receipt taxes than we projected. And we did receive a bit more property tax than we had projected. So when we build our budget, we conservatively forecast the revenues and then balance the expenses against that, so we have a balanced budget. Then when we see revenue increases as they come in, we look at, are there opportunities for infrastructure or whatever, and then we'll come to the commission for a budget adjustment. So at the end of the year, we're truing those statements up so that we can send them to New Mexico Department of Finance and have them balanced. So
Okay. So,
it's really an accounting measure to reflect actual receipts and how we trued up the budget.
okay,
Is that correct?
Right, because, if we originally had $25 million in oil and gas and we actually collected 60-some million, they really want to see that budget meet that actual amount is what they like to see.
so how close are we to the 186 million on our budgeted expenses? I mean, so those are the budgeted expenses, obviously the budgeted revenue just changed, but the budget expense did not change, correct?
Correct, we don't adjust that unless the actual expenses go over that amount.
So what was the actual budgeted expense before the adjustment, or budgeted revenue before the adjustment, excuse me?
I think there was like around 174 million,
Still pretty dang good.
yeah.
So, okay, that's right, just one, sorry. It's like Common Core math, we finally came around and got the same answer, but it took me longer to get it than everybody else, so. But I mean, that's pretty impressive to be
Yeah.
within, $7 or $8 million of
Yeah, no,
where that
it's-
was at. And amidst all economic hardship, to bring actual expense in, I think it's really, that's really kind of a good year and close out.
I think ideally, we would have liked to have been a little bit closer to the 186. But again, getting resources and materials to execute the work, we had plans to do that work, plans for people to be working at the county, and there's a gap there. We'll continue to work to fill our vacancies, and we'll continue to press forward on the projects that we have, for county infrastructure and see what happens in the coming months.
But because we didn't spend that other $45 million, we still have that money encumbered where it won't be,
Yes, sir.
there's no risk of being swept or anything like that from the state, so it's still encumbered in future projects.
They're identified, associated with work to be done.
Okay.
Soon,
Huh?
soon.
So we can get materials
work
to do
to
it.
be done, yeah,
Get materials and labor to do it.
We've got some big projects out right now that have been awarded and have started. The pace will be the thing to watch and monitor. So,
Okay. All right, Stephen, are you done with all your questions? Yes, I am.
good job.
Entertain a motion that we approve budget versus actual June revenue.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Cordova?
Yes.
McCutcheon?
Yes.
Beard?
Yes.
thank you, Commissioners, good discussion. All right, the next item is the fiscal year 2021-2022 fourth quarter lodgers tax report.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, for the fourth quarter lodgers tax report, we started the fiscal year with $276,000 in cash. We ended with $223,000. So we did use some of that cash balance, although we did collect quite a bit in lodgers tax. So I know Wes has been doing a pretty good job of this. I think this is the most we've ever spent in lodgers tax. So we are trying to get that money spent. For this last quarter, we collected $37,000 with a total of $108,000 collected. And for expenditures, we collected $33,000 for a total for the fiscal year of $161,000.
Any questions or comments on the quarters, the lodgers tax fourth quarter report? Having none, entertain a motion that we approve lodgers tax fourth quarter report.
So moved?
Second.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Cordova?
Yes.
McCutcheon?
Yes.
Beard?
Yes.
I would like to see us make an effort to spend more of that. I know that it just kind of sits there, but that's a lot of unused resource that could be used to promote Eddy County there, so I'll consider. I had signs, it was like $9,000 or something, so I didn't do very much. That would be a good idea.
So we do have a program, I think, with Red Rocket that Wes is working on, that we've been more consistent, and we're trying to broaden that approach. And as we discussed this week, with
This week with Doug
with
Ackerman.
Namoga and how to help craft and carry that message and get it to the right places and spaces. So, yeah, we'll continue to be active in that space.
Great.
Okay, last item is the Resolution 22-66 fiscal year 2022-2023 final budget approval.
Don't we have to do the
Fourth
we just
quarter.
did-
Oh,
Yeah, we
we
did
just
the
did
fourth quarter.
Sorry. Okay, back up. Resolution 22-65 fiscal year 2021-2022 DFA fourth quarter report. Ms. Roberta.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, I'm just gonna hit some of the points we didn't talk about in the budget versus actual, because this report is very similar, it's just in DFA's format. It's just kind of wrapping up the whole entire county's financials for the fiscal year. So again, as you can see up top there, revenues for general fund expenditures, with your transfers, that's basically what we talked about in the budget versus actual. One of the things we didn't talk about was property tax that Gal had brought up. We were about $6.9 million over in property taxes. We budgeted a little over $16 million and we collected almost $24 million in property taxes. We did increase that for next year's budget. And I think I explained last year, but DFA only allows me to budget what the third quarter, what we actually collected for the third quarter. We can't budget any more than that from the prior year. So that's why we had budgeted that less, for this last fiscal year, for fiscal year 21-22. So we did increase that for this fiscal year.
Another contributing factor, if you remember from the assessor's report earlier this year, the valuations across the county have improved. Some of that was the state appraisals from that report, but the overall valuation of property in Eddy County has increased in this past year, and so that would contribute to some of that increased receipts. The budget outlook is, like Roberta said, we're restricted on, you can only report or budget 3 quarters worth of your projected receipts instead of the full quarters. So there's always going to be a little bit of a gap in there.
Another thing I wanted to talk about here is that first line up there, general fund. As you can see, we started the fiscal year off with $64 million in cash. That's cash and investments together. And we ended the fiscal year with $138 million in cash. So that is where we get our surplus for this fiscal year. Road fund, they did end up with the surplus as well too. They ended up with a little bit of over $3 million of surplus. Also, what we didn't talk about was FEMA. We did spend about $16 million in FEMA expenses. We have about $2 million left, and that's really because of the equipment that we didn't receive this year. Just kind of like the rest of the county, we had ordered it. We thought it was going to be in and stuff. We thought we were going to be able to close that out, but that's one thing we'll have to carry over to the next fiscal year. It's just roughly a little over $2 million to finish closing that out.
And that's the last outstanding item to get all of that FEMA work finished and done, gone.
And that won't affect anything with FEMA that we're having to carry it over.
No.
No, we've been in contact with them and they understand.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Best they're up there.
I will second that.
Dealing with, I really feel bad for those folks up north that are gonna have to go down that road. It's just a challenge, just a challenge.
With the flooding is what you're referring to.
Right, and the fires in the front, right. So that'll be just a long, arduous road.
I saw yesterday that Las Vegas declared like a state of emergency for their water situation. It's not good.
There's the after effects may be as severe as the actual fire. It's just my opinion, uninformed opinion about what is represented in the media, but that's tough business. FEMA, bless their heart, promises lots of things, but to actually get it done from our experience, and I'm not sure we want any more of that apple. It's bitter. Okay, did we get it approved?
Sure.
You wanna do the last one now?
Oh, we still
We
need
have
this
to
one
approve it.
approved.
Oh, well, I just asked that. Did you approve it?
Roberta gave us the approval.
Yeah, but you guys have to do the
All
approval.
right, let's make it official. Entertain a motion that we approve DFA fourth quarter report for 21-22.
So moved.
Second.
Motion second, please call for the vote.
Cordova?
Yes.
McCutcheon?
Yes.
Beard?
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. I apologize for being flippant. That's not right. Okay, last item. Resolution 22-66, fiscal year 2022-2023, final budget approval. Ms. Roberta.
Mr. Chairman, Commissioners, so this is our final approval. As you guys know, you guys approved the interim budget back in May. There wasn't hardly any changes. The only change that we made from the interim to the final was the LEPF, which is the Law Enforcement Protection Fund. Again, a requirement from DFAs, if you have any carryover money, you have to budget that in the new year. There was only $93.91 that was carried over, so that was really the only change in the final budget that we had to include.
Now that's good shooting.
Yeah.
So just to kind of recap the fiscal year 22-23 budget, the total expense budget for the entire county is $158 million. Total revenue for the entire budget, let me get to another screen here. Can you go to the very first page, please? Like the agenda request page? There we go, thank you. Okay. Total revenue for the entire county is $142.9 million. We are submitting a balanced budget for general fund of $91.8 million for general fund. Just as a quick recap, we're approving 23 new positions, 15 reclassifications. We are including our step increases for the year. Our new plan of longevity pay is included in this. We are gonna have 27 pay periods this year. I think that happens like, I don't know, every 14 or 15 years, so it's just kind of one of those years it falls on. So that was an extra expense for the personnel budget. We have 27 pay periods instead of 26. We had a few para changes and some other miscellaneous changes in our salary. General fund, we did make some increases in our revenue, as Al and I discussed. For our gross receipts tax, this last fiscal year, we budgeted about $6.2 million per 1/8. We increased that to $7 million per 1/8 on each of those GRTs for general fund. Our oil and gas production, we increased from $25 million from last year to $35 million. And we are budgeting that at $60 price per barrel, at 13 million barrels per month is what we're averaging. And of course, we finished this last fiscal year averaging $16.4 million per barrel every single month. Those were the biggest changes. We had a couple other miscellaneous revenue changes, but those were the biggest changes in the revenue that we did this year.
That's good.
Questions, comments?
We tried to, we recognized the economic situation and felt it was appropriate to raise our outlook on the oil and gas revenue forecast from $47.50 to $60 a barrel, but we still held the volume consistent for the next fiscal year. Other folks take a different approach. I mean, we could say that we're gonna budget at $45 or $50 a barrel, but I think 60's reasonable and still conservative. The dynamics of commodity markets are no crystal balls, but I think we'll be very comfortable with that outlook and this budget. So.
All right. Entertain a motion that we approve final budget 22-23.
So moved.
Second.
Motion is second. Please call for the vote.
Cordova,
Yes.
Hutchins,
Yes.
Beard.
Yes.
Thank you, Commissioners. We appreciate this. This is a special one because we need to finalize these with commission approval so that we can get them submitted to DFA before the end of the month. So Ms. Roberta will file all of this today, and we'll be within the DFA guidelines. We couldn't do that at our next regularly scheduled meeting, which is next Tuesday, because that's August 2nd. So
Yes,
thank you very
for
much.
taking the time, I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
And that concludes our business this morning. Thank you, Ms. Roberta.
Thank you, Roberta.
Ms. Kara, thanks for